Hey everyone, this is James from JLMI, and today we're going to do something a little bit different compared to the previous videos we made. In fact, we're going to demonstrate to you all a simple dialogue that you might experience, for example, if you go to a cafe in Japan. It's just a simple dialogue between the お客様 or the customer and the tein or the worker, the person behind the register. And at the end, we'll kind of pick out a few bits and pieces of the dialogue and kind of explain to you what makes this dialogue a bit interesting. So enough talking and rambling, and let's just jump right in. コーヒーの L サイズを一つお願いします。はい、かしこまりました。コーヒーの一番大きいサイズですね。砂糖とミルクはご利用されますか？いいえ、ブラックで結構です。かしこまりました。ブラックコーヒーの一番大きいサイズ、砂糖とミルクなしで、合計250円でございます。はい、スイカでお願いします。かしこまりました。タッチお願いします。レシートはいらないです。かしこまりました。ありがとうございました。またお越しくださいませ。What a dialogue, right? So, initially the guy says, コーヒー、L サイズお願いします。So, he says he would like an L size coffee. And in Japan, it is extremely common to order drinks or food and say L size or S size or M size or otter size. You can say like 大きい size, but more often than not, you'll hear both young and old Japanese people asking for an S size drink or an M size French fry at McDonald's or something. So keep that in mind when you go out to eat. And following that, the person behind the register says, かしこまりました. So what on earth is かしこまりました? Well, it plainly said, it is the humble form of わかりました. And in Japanese, when you conjugate a verb in the humble form, you're symbolically lowering your status or position in order to show more respect to the person you're speaking to. And in this situation, the person behind the register was speaking to a client or a customer. And that is often the case. You'll often hear a barista or someone working behind the register at a restaurant saying かしこまりました multiple times to the customer. And this can be used, depending on the situation, it could be used in the office as well, but you're probably not going to want to say かしこまりました to your buddies or your family members, unless it's kind of a joke. So yeah, in that situation, you just say わかりました. And after かしこまりました, the person behind the register said, コーヒーの一番大きいサイズですね. So 一番大きい. So 一番 is how you create superlatives in Japanese. So you take 一番, and then after that, you can add any adjective in the Japanese language. So if you wanted to say the fastest, you would say 一番 plus 早い. So 一番早い becomes the fastest. If you wanted to say the coldest, you'd say 一番 plus 寒い. So 一番寒い becomes the coldest. And if you wanted to say the cheapest, you'd say 一番 plus 安い. So 一番安い becomes the cheapest. Superlatives are extremely easy to make in Japanese. So following this, the person behind the register asks, 砂糖とミルクはご利用されますか? So ご利用されます what is ご利用されます? In fact, it is the honorific form of 利用する, and 利用する means to use. So literally, this person is asking the customer, will you use sugar and milk? But ultimately, they're asking, will you take your coffee with milk or sugar? And the honorific form of 利用する is ご利用されます, which is symbolically raising the level of the person you're speaking to show more politeness or respect to them, of course. And again, they're workers and they're the clients. So naturally, this is the case here. And you can use this honorific form when you're speaking to somebody, for example, at your office. Maybe your manager or the CEO or basically anybody who is, again, symbolically higher than you. So they just asked the customer, 砂糖とミルクはご利用されますか? So the important thing here to note is the word miruku. So, or milk, right? So the setting is a cafe. And this is just a rule of thumb. Whenever you go to a cafe in Japan, don't order things with gyunyu, or the real Japanese word for milk. Because if you said コーヒーに牛乳を入れてください, or if you said 牛乳お願いします, you would probably be literally handed a cup or glass of milk. So anytime you're at a cafe, miruku をお願いします. Keep that word in mind. So after being asked, 砂糖とミルクはご利用されますか? Or will you take it with sugar or milk? The guy says, いいえ、ブラックで結構です. So this is another interesting word like the word miruku. When you order coffee in Japan and you just want it unsweetened or unmilked, like no milk in your coffee, you ask for black coffee or black でお願いします. You do not say 黒いコーヒーお願いします. It's just redundant and you don't have to ask why, you just simply don't ask that. So keep that in mind. After that, the person behind the register says, ブラックコーヒーの一番大きいサイズ、合計250円でございます. So here, 合計 simply means total. So 合計250円でございます means your total is 250 Japanese yen. And 合計1000円でございます means your total is 1000 Japanese yen. So simply put, 合計 means total. So 合計250円でございます. This is a very important, crucial point here, folks. So, でございます. What is でございます? Well, in fact, it is the humble form for the word desu. And again, the humble form in Japanese is used when you want to symbolically lower your level in respect to the person you're speaking to. So you're being polite to them by lowering your level. And typically when you use でございます, you got to think of it as like, say this is the register. It's everything behind the register. So your fellow staff members or the coffee or the products or other products or services that you're providing, all of their levels too become lowered as well. So ブラックコーヒーでございます is a product and you're symbolically lowering its level in respect to the person you're speaking to. So it's a very, very polite way of saying the word です. So following that, the customer says, suika でお願いします. So, suika. What is suika? It's an extremely common method of cashless payment in Japan. In fact, it's a commuter card, and you can charge this commuter card with money, of course. And not only do you pay for transportation fees via the train, you can also buy things like drinks or food or even things like clothing or video games, depending on whether the store accepts this method of payment or not, of course. So, suika でお願いします. So, で means via or by means of. So, paying via suika. So, でお願いします. So, you're kindly requesting that you'd pay via suika. So, お願いします is a very contextual word. Depending on the context, it could mean a bunch of things. But here, it's an extremely polite way of asking to pay via suika. So, if you wanted to say, I would like to pay via cash, you would say 現金でお願いします. If you wanted to say, I would like to pay via credit card, you would say カードでお願いします. So in response to that, the person behind the register says, かしこまりました. タッチお願いします. So tacchi means touch. And what are they touching per se? Well, they'll probably be a card reader nearby the register somewhere, because what this card reader is ultimately doing is it's going to suck the cash out of your suika. Again, it's a cashless payment, a method of payment, right? So you'll touch your card to the card reader and it sucks the cash out of your suika. So, タッチをお願いします. So please touch your card to the card reader. And then the customer says, レシートはいらないです. So, reshiito is receipt, and iranai desu. I do not need the receipt. Simply put, this sentence means I don't need a receipt, thank you. And last but not least, the person behind the register says, かしこまりました。ありがとうございました。またお越しくださいませ. So, お越しくださいませ. またお越しくださいませ is a set phrase, and you will hear this a trillion times in Japan, and it simply means thank you very much, please come again. So またお越しくださいませ. Please come again. So there's our dialogue for today. And, the point of these videos isn't to be perfect in speaking in the honorific or the humble form. It's more so to help you prepare for things and so you know what to expect. For example, when you go shopping or when you go out to eat. And, a bunch of teens, a bunch of workers are going to be saying these sort of things to you. So you can keep these sort of things in mind and kind of recall at those times like, oh, they're speaking to me in a very honorific and or humble way. That's kind of cool. I remember that. Thanks, James, in that video, that one day, so just keep that in mind. Yes, and if you have any other questions about Japanese language or pronunciation or grammar or anything and everything between, or maybe you just simply want to comment on whether you thought the kyakusama or the tein, the customer or the worker was hotter, I'm sure they'll be very happy to hear it. You can let us know all of those things down below. And be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, be sure to tell your grandma and your aunt and your friend all about it. I'm sure they're going to like it too. And be sure to look forward to more videos and content that we're currently in the process of making. So yeah, keep on keeping on, and もう今後もずっと頑張ってください。もう今日もお疲れ様でした。